is one of Mr. Anime's last uploads.
I'm Mr. Anime. I don't really have a show for you.
Oh, how you doing, everyone? It's Mr. Anime. Or you can call me Trey. You can call me the guy that does the video game reviews. You can call me the guy that does all the fun stuff now.
His content was getting darker by the week, but no one seemed to suspect his terrible fantasy was in fact a plan.
Every day I open Yahoo, I'm like, well, time to see what today eating is.
Once, he posted well-researched, coherent video game reviews. Now, he was blabbering on about firearms, murder, and random thoughts. And yet, no one took him seriously.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Pretty good? Yeah? What's everyone doing for Halloween? Yeah, I know that I'm pretty sure a lot of our viewers don't run around with candy bags and knock on people's doors. They might, though.
In March 2012, he posted his last video titled, Mr. Anime Has a Job. Then he unalived his entire family and slept with his mother's body. Did no one see his fast decline on YouTube? Did no one raise the alarm? And is it any easier to call people out on the internet today, more than a decade later? Let's explore the shocking story of Trey Sesler. Trey Sesler joined YouTube in 2006. That's the very beginning of YouTube. I know it sounds like there was no life before YouTube, but many people lived a big chunk of their lives without it. He was born to parents Rhonda and Lawton Jr. on August 3rd, 1989. He grew up with his parents and older brother Mark in this house in Waller, Texas. Lawton was an elementary school teacher and Rhonda worked at a local newspaper. She was described as a precise wordsmith with a contagious laugh. At least from the outside, this family seemed happy. They were seen together on weekends, and their neighbors rarely witnessed awkward moments or fights between these four. Trey did all right in school. His grades were okay. He was not isolated, and he even had a passion for playing the trombone for the school band. But it was when he joined the digital video club that he discovered his bigger passion. He loved video making, video games, and tech. Of course, this was very different back in the early 2000s. The internet was changing fast, and lots of teens were fascinated with every update. However, Trey had other passions too. When he was 13, he phoned 911 and said he was terrified of a shadow he didn't recognize. He requested an officer ASAP. Then, he waited behind his front door, armed with a baseball bat. His plan? An officer would come to his aid, he would attack him with the baseball bat and steal his firearm. Then, he would take the firearm to a friend's house and unalive him. That's right, 13-year-old Trey Sesler wanted a gun, and his brightest idea was to attack a cop and steal theirs. It's safe to say he didn't really think his plan through. Trey's plan went really bad. As soon as the officer entered his home, he realized this was not going to work. However, the officer realized what he had planned to do. So he ordered Trey to see a psychiatrist for assessment. Maybe this was Trey's first chance at getting the help that he really needed. While Trey did see the psychiatrist, Waller PD dropped the case, and Trey did not continue with any sort of treatment. Fast forward to 2006, and 17-year-old Trey started his YouTube channel.
Hey, hand me my water over there.
Okay.
There you go.
YouTube is a vast universe today, but back in 2006, it was full of random skits like this. People posted homemade videos in their bedrooms, aiming to be full-time creators or just having a bit of fun. Trey's brother Mark would sometimes play a part in his sketches.
Let me call you back.
You have some sort of stupid problem? Why are you interrupting me when I'm on the phone? I'm trying to get a...
By the end of 2006, Trey changed his YouTube channel name to Mr. Anime and started doing anime reviews. This was a super successful niche at the time. YouTube was still small and there weren't thousands of creators on the topic. In fact, Trey was one of the first to do anime reviews online.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Mr. Anime Reviews.
Within the next few years, his channel skyrocketed to online fame. He'd become an anime star. Almost every anime fan on the internet would know his name. They enjoyed his honest reviews, relatable personality, and kind words. He was not the type to trash talk anime just to get more views. This is what makes his change even more disturbing. In 2011, Mr. Anime had 1 million views. This was huge back then.
Hey, that apple right there, you're gonna like that. Yeah, I grew it myself. It was a couple years ago, though, that I did that.
Mr. Anime started out with random skits, then he specialized in anime reviews. Then he started adding his skits again to break from the anime review pattern and entertain his subscribers. Except this time, his skits were pretty dark. You see, Trey had never forgotten about his dream to own his own firearms. That incident when he was 13 was not a random intermission or a lame attempt to rebel against his parents. It was a dream. Owning and using firearms made him feel more powerful.
So, I don't know what's going on. You know, they had an article that were like, well, the economy's gone bad. Everyone's losing their job and getting mad and shooting everybody. Yeah, I guess that makes sense since a lot of the shooters lately have recently lost their job. But I'm a firearms owner myself, but it is a little bit disturbing to know that you could be a victim in something like this at these times. All the people that were victims, you think it won't happen to me, but sometimes it does.
On the one hand, Trey spoke about firearms and shootings almost with empathy toward victims. On the other hand, he proudly confessed to his subscribers that he owned more and more firearms. Now that Trey was over the age of 18, he could do as he pleased, and to his surprise, it was super easy to get these weapons. He had a veritable collection, and paired with his fascination of mass and school things, you can only imagine how this goes on. In 2011, 22-year-old Trey Sesler lived alone in his grandmother's home. She had recently passed away, and he moved there for privacy, also telling his parents he would keep the house tidy and safe until they figured out what to do with it. Of course, it's usually a good idea for a young adult to start living on their own and become independent in every respect. But in some cases, it can lead to feelings of isolation and resentment. Trey needed help. With no one there to see that, his madness worsened and led him to a point of no return. In 2011, Trey had a plan. He would unalive his family, reenact the Columbine High School massacre, and become one of the greatest serial killers in history, right after Ted Bundy. For the last year, he had been obsessing over Bundy and other monsters, and researching school shootings in great detail. What was the most efficient way to hide your weapons while entering a school? What entrance should he take so he gets the most populous areas before getting kicked out? How could he take as many lives as possible in the least time possible? These were real questions on his mind. Then he started his plan to commit his massacre at Waller High School. This was the school he had attended just a few years back. Now he wanted everyone there dead. He had a satellite image of the school and oodles of info on its plan, exits, and surroundings. His friends didn't know about this until very late. But some people following his YouTube did note something horrible. Almost too horrible to mention. Trey had a pet rabbit, and he'd used it to practice his firing skills. Trey had no more love for animals' lives than for humans. He wanted everyone gone, even those he chose to be around him, like his pet friends. Trey did not show the gruesome act, but he did talk about it to his viewers. Tragically enough, Trey did not keep his thoughts a secret, and yet very few people showed concern. In early 2012, he was posting stuff like this.
I'm Mr. Anime. I don't really have a show for you.
Oh, how you doing, everyone? It's Mr. Anime. Or you can call me Trey. You can call me the guy that does the video game reviews. You can call me the guy that does all the gun stuff now. What I have here today to show you is a High Point. Now, for those of you that are familiar with High Point, you might have a very low opinion of them, or you might have a high opinion of them.
In his videos, he was drunk, incoherent, and ranted on about taking lives and using his many firearms. Around New Year's 2012, he also told a friend that he planned to take his father's life. You see, all was not fine and dandy at the Sesler household. For years, Trey had built resentment towards his father, Lawton Jr., and on Christmas Day 2011, they had their last big fight. Lawton Jr. had wanted his son to be more ambitious for a long time. His full-time YouTube stint did not sit well with him. He could see his son wasting away, getting even more isolated, and not planning for the future. After graduating from high school, Trey enrolled in college but quit by the end of the first year. Lawton Jr. did not like this, and every time these two were in a room together, the discussion gravitated towards Trey's plans for the future. While Lawton Jr. had good intentions, Trey concluded that his dad saw him as the loser of the family. He also compared himself to his older brother Mark and concluded that Mark was sort of a golden child and that he had no chance of being as loved as Mark. This was wrong, it was just his perception. He could not take a serious talk with his family. Plus, it was easier for him to believe all of this and isolate himself from his family rather than accept that there was more to life than firearms and YouTube videos. Now, you've seen Trey's drunken videos.
I'm Mr. Anime. I don't really have a show for you.
Trey would not only drink on camera, almost every time his family saw him in 2012, he was drunk to the point of incoherency. They were worried about him. Mark and Lawton Jr. in particular would try to scare him out of his addiction. It was becoming debilitating, and with his firearm collection in handy, they feared he could hurt himself. They never thought, however, that Trey would use his weapons on them. You guys, that's a story that repeats a little too often. Kind-hearted people see the good in their loved ones, even when they exhibit every single red flag. They don't want to believe that they could hurt them, and then they do. On March 13th, 2012, Trey posted his last video titled, "Mr. Anime Has a Job." He claimed that he just struck a lucrative deal with a filmmaking company, and he would now be busier than before. His videos would get less frequent, he announced to his subscribers, but he would strive to stay active on YouTube no matter how successful he got. Perhaps this was a story that would have made his father proud. Except it was all a lie. There was no deal, no company, and no job. And Trey's alcohol addiction was only getting worse. That was Mr. Anime's last video. A week later, he spent the night binge drinking at his family home. In the dark hours of March 20th, he got armed up with his rifle and unalived his mom. Then he decided he had to off the rest of his family too.
I don't know where she gets hit, but I know it's somewhere in the torso area. And she falls like a kind of bad. It was like, well, I'm already committed, really. Can't really go to my brother and my dad and be like, yeah, I just killed our mom. And I was like, okay. Right after I had killed the family, it was on my mind to do that.
Yeah. In Trey's mind, once he took his mother's life, he had no choice but to continue, even though he'd already realized how wrong it was. He even took their pets' lives. Trey would also confess that unaliving his entire family was an act of mercy. You see, he was planning the next Columbine High School massacre, and he wouldn't want his parents and brother to live with that information for the rest of their lives. There are a million arguments against what he said. That's textbook psychopathy. Even after taking out his entire family, Trey painted himself as having some sort of higher conscience, wanting to protect his family from his sadness.
The thing about my family is I would protect them with my life, but at the same time, if anyone was going to hurt them, it was going to be me.
But during the same interrogation, he also said this.
They were the first immediate human target in my sight. And if I was going to go out and do anything, they would have to go.
So he wanted to protect them, but they were also the first targets in sight. That shows the level of empathy and understanding Trey had. In the early hours of March 20th, the Seslers' neighbor phoned 911 to report shots being fired inside their home. While 2 officers arrived on the scene within the hour, they did not see anything suspicious and did not enter the home. It wasn't until that afternoon that the Seslers' extended family phoned Waller PD and asked them to do a welfare check, and the crime scene was discovered. Rhonda and Lawton Jr. spoke to their siblings every day. So when they did not pick up their phone for a whole day, their family rang the alarm bells. Rhonda was discovered inside the garage with 4 bullet wounds to her chest. Inside the house were the lifeless bodies of Lawton Jr. and Mark, both of whom had suffered the same fate. The house was covered in red splashes and puddles, and the doors were covered in creepy confessions written in very sloppy handwriting. I will never forgive myself. I don't know why I did this. God help me. I'll never forgive my state of mind. Never. No one will forgive me, not even me. Above his old bedroom door, there were several bits of text written in black and red, big and small. I'm not angry, I'm upset. Is this bad? Will I get in trouble? Will they look at me strange? Problems and fears are the only two things that need to be confronted. This is what a real cover-up looks like. Deny this. Trey was right. Problems and fear do need to be confronted at a therapist's office, not with a firearm. And while the officers were securing the crime scene and putting the pieces together, Trey was in his car looking at his old high school. He sat there for an hour contemplating his plan. This was his moment to shine.
I'm like, there's my opportunity. Go ahead, go get him. I don't know, maybe it was just what happened was too real.
It was too real to unalive your family. What a realization. Thankfully though, Trey never got to commit his final atrocity. He was tracked down to a friend's house and arrested that day. He gave a full confession sprinkled with narcissistic remarks. He tried to protect his family from his future plan that never took place. He meant well. He loved his family, even if detectives did not believe it. Well, Trey, it's pretty hard to believe you loved your family when you just annihilated it. With his confession, verbal and written all over his walls, and tons of DNA evidence, there wasn't much of a trial. Trey Sesler was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole at the age of 22. He is still in a Texas prison 12 years after his incarceration. From prison, Trey wrote a letter to his friend James. Good to hear from ya. Appreciate the articles as well. Things have been alright here for the most part. I haven't been hearing about any big things or anything on the news, but these incidents usually have some space between them. Usually people will commit suicide after they do something like that to escape getting arrested and having to go through the hassle of a trial. Not everybody does though, like Holmes. That dude shot up the theater and he was taken in alive. If somebody gets to that point in life, like I was, you really don't care about what happens anymore. I had a nice car and some savings built up and a good home life, but I was very tired of it all. I found society to be a sham. Very few will have happy lives, and work hard only goes so far in reality. This is a brief insight into his twisted mind at the time. It's hard for most of us to imagine how someone can get to such a point of madness and hatred. Plus, if you feel society is a scam, why take it out on your own family? By all accounts, Rhonda, Lawton, Mark never meant to harm Trey. In fact, they were a loving, supporting family who offered him a good start in life, financial security, and affection throughout his entire life. Bar his fights with Lawton, there is no evidence of a lack of love in the Sesler house. This is what makes this case so tragic. And there is something else, something quite sinister. Trey had been online for 6 years at the time of the tragedy, and during the last 2 or 3 years, his content had been getting darker and darker. Some people commented on his horrible remark that he had practiced his on his bunny. Why did no one report him? Why did people seem generally unconcerned about his videos? This is not the first or last time that a YouTuber turned into a killer in front of a live audience.
We're always talking about warning signs, and could we have seen it coming? Well, you know what? If you want to look for warning signs, there they are. Those are your fucking warning signs. Investigate those people.
Pika Eric Avian, known as Natural Selector 89 on YouTube, sported a fun mop of hair and a mischievous grin. Other teens who followed him saw him more like a harmless prankster than a harbinger of tragedy.
Hello everyone, this is me, Natural Selector 89, talking to you, friends and haters and everyone else. I got this idea of making an introduction video to my channel, since I already have over 130 videos and not an introduction video yet, so I guess it's good time to make one.
In the early days, the same time Trent went online, Pika's YouTube channel was a haven for edgy humor and provocative rants. His videos garnered attention, attracting a following of disaffected youth who resonated with his anti-establishment rhetoric. He was the underdog's champion, railing against the injustices of society with a sharp tongue and quick wit. But as his popularity grew, so did his dark side. Beneath the surface, Pika was consumed by a toxic brew of resentment and nihilism. He felt like an outcast, rejected by a world that he believed had failed him. His YouTube persona became increasingly erratic, lashing out with vitriolic tirades against anyone he deemed responsible for his misery. As the years passed, Pika's descent into madness became impossible to ignore. His videos grew more unhinged, his words dripping with venomous hatred. He became obsessed with violence, posting disturbing content that hinted at the darkness lurking within. This is what he wrote in his YouTube channel's description. I am prepared to fight and die for my cause. I, as a natural selector, will eliminate all whom I see unfit, disgraces of the human race, and failures of natural selection. Then, in November 2007, Pika stormed his high school in Jokela, Finland, with a rifle, unleashing a hail of bullets that left 8 people dead before turning the gun on himself. In the aftermath of the massacre, the world struggled to make sense of how a YouTube star could transform into a cold-blooded killer. Some blamed the internet, arguing that it had provided a platform for Pika's descent into madness. Others pointed to deeper societal issues, questioning how a young man could become so lost in a sea of anger and despair. But perhaps the truth is simpler and more chilling than we care to admit. Pika Eric Avien was not some mythical monster lurking in the shadows. He was a troubled soul, adrift in a world that he never really understood. And in the end, it was that sense of alienation and isolation that drove him to commit the ultimate act of violence. It's all too similar to Trey's story. Alone, isolated, and ever more resentful towards themselves, these young YouTubers turn to violence. Perhaps their increasingly vile videos, unconfronted by thousands of viewers, only added to their misery. Many times, such videos are cries for help. Perhaps they wanted to be listened to or even stopped, but no one thought they posed an actual threat. Or if they did, they didn't feel like they could make a change. This is tragic. You guys, we're all on the internet today. If we see something we feel isn't right, there are report buttons, complaints, and even authorities we can contact. Let us not be passive bystanders in a world where we can literally watch someone's descent into madness on a live stream. Thanks for watching, you guys. What do you think about this case? Let me know in the comment section, and while you're at it, why not give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more. See you next time, and stay safe.